Hello and welcome back to Own Your Peace. I'm your host, Andy Thewison, and today is a bit of a celebration. It is my 1 year anniversary of podcasting. A year ago today, I launched Own Your Peace, and it has been such an amazing, wild ride. And I am so grateful I said yes, that I was brave, that I made the leap because this year and this podcast has brought so many new connections into my life, so many amazing friendships. And it really has been this amazing catapulting energy to launch into every week. And I really am excited to dive into this episode to show you a little bit of the behind the scenes reflections of what I've learned over the past year and also the highlights. It really truly has been the adventure of a lifetime to put yourself out there in this way. And I know so many of you are in these areas, you're feeling these nudges of like, I want to try something different. I want to put myself out there. I'm feeling something coming, or I'm feeling this urge to move in a way that feels really uncomfortable and outside my comfort zone. This has been completely out of my comfort zone to start this podcast 100% by myself and put it out there. And the outpouring of growth and connections I have made have been everything. And I'm so excited to celebrate this win with you, to celebrate us growing together, this community of women and, some men. I have some men listeners, and it has been everything. And my heart is just absolutely bursting with pride and really truly celebrating myself and doing something I was really scary for me, but also the commitment, the devotion that I put into this podcast week after week, showing up for myself week after week, and what I've learned in that process and how I've grown in this incubator called the podcast has been really cool. So I'm excited to spend this episode sharing some things that you might not have known, and really opening up this new window for season two. In season one, I really felt like I was finding my sea legs. I was finding my direction, finding my voice. And this next year is where we grow. This is where we expand and we ignite and this thing gets set on fire. And I am so excited. It's so interesting, the timelines of things. Right now, I have 4 or 5 episodes that I've already recorded with amazing, beautiful guests that you are absolutely going to love. I like end each recording and I'm like, that was such an amazing episode. People are going to really love this episode. And so the caliber of guests are, I've loved every person that I've had on the show. So I don't want to say that the guests are getting more exciting, because the guests I've already had have been amazing. And I really have enjoyed the conversations we've had so far, but this is just an onward, growing, expanding thing. And I'm so excited for it. I thought it would be fun to share some of like the nitty gritty, nerdy details of the growth of this podcast, because that's me. I'm a nerd. I'm tracking these things. I try to track them from a detached state, because sometimes, especially at the beginning, when I was just starting this podcast, and I would look week after week and the numbers weren't as exciting as I wanted them to be, and it wasn't growing as quickly as I wanted to be. It was really easy for me to get in my own head and to feel like I wanted to call it quits. Like, "Ugh, nobody's even listening to this thing anyway. Why my voice doesn't matter." We do that. We get in our own heads. And I finally was like, you know what? I feel called to do this. Even if one person hears this episode and it makes a difference, then it's worth it. And if nobody hears this, it's worth it, because I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm expanding. I look back at my first episodes to some of my last episodes, and the growth in me as a host, as a interviewer, has been so fun to see. And it wouldn't have ever happened that way if I didn't take the chance and put myself out there. So numbers aren't everything. So if you're sitting there and you're starting something new, or you're putting yourself out on social media and you're like only focused on the metrics of how many views, how many likes, knock that off. The journey is for you. The journey is for your growth. And if you flip the script on how you see things, the growth will come. So one of the biggest things that I've started to switch almost even in the last couple of weeks, if I'm being completely honest, is I have had a love-hate relationship with social media. Like I love what it's capable of, but that algorithm gets me knocked on my ass more than I would like to say, where I get frustrated and it's like I'm pouring my heart out there and I'm making this really great content and then it's crickets. But what I'm starting to see in myself is that I was not feeding love into the algorithm. I was feeding love into my content, but not into the apps and the access that I should have. I would do it with resentment, with, oh, this is how you grow a business. You have to do it this way. But what I've started to do and the energy that I now do when I'm posting online is, isn't it amazing that I have this opportunity, this free window to potentially connect with hundreds, thousands, millions of amazing humans every day. Every day I put love and light out there, and I have this opportunity to use this free tool for connection. That's the energy I'm flipping to. And that is the shift I think so many of us need to make. We stop looking at the metrics. They can be disheartening. Start flipping it to joy and start looking at it as an opportunity to connect with people, to genuinely connect with people. And that is really a big leap that we can all make. So many of us get stuck in how. How is this going to happen? When I'm manifesting and when I'm creating, I'm like, I always think like I'm going to be a top 25%, top 5% podcast host. But then I start getting into that. And what I really have been trying to train my brain to move to is I wonder how it's going to happen. I wonder how the universe will surprise and delight me this month. I wonder what new opportunities will come to me that will help me with my growth. So when we move our how to wonder and flip the script, things start to shift and move in our favor. That's when I've gotten this whole lineup of guests I've got coming in the next month or so. It's pretty exciting. And that's me being in wonder. That's me flipping to play. That's me flipping to not taking myself so damn seriously. And that's the magic. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned over this year in this podcast. If you listen to some of my first episodes, they were very formulatic. They were very scripted. I was very much like, I'm going to teach you all the amazing things I know, which I do. I knew lots of things and I'm a really good teacher and I love to teach. But what has evolved within me is this ability to not only teach, but to embody and show you how to embody these different ways of being because information is great. I love giving really great information, but what's more important for you as a listener is learning how to not only take this great information, but learning how to use it, how to embody it, and how it can shift and shape your life when you move from information to embodiment. And that has been, I think, the biggest trajectory change that I have learned over this past year is helping learn beyond just teaching good information to really teaching how do we use these things in real life? How do we make this tactical, tangible, and really grounded in our daily lives of being this human? So those are some of the things that I have seen myself show up for you differently with each and every episode. So let's get into some numbers. As I just said, don't look at numbers, but I just thought it would be fun to show you how we've grown together. So we have reached 34 countries. 34 countries have showed up to listen to an episode. That's really cool. People all over Europe, all over Asia. I think one of my most exciting things to look at is how many countries I'm in, or if I see a new country I haven't reached before. It's really exciting to me. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know in the world where in the world this is, and I'll look it up. And it's just this fun thing for me to look at. We have reached 248 cities, which is really cool. Um, I have recorded 54 episodes in 1 year. I have not missed 1 week. There have been no breaks. I have showed up consistently. If I'm being completely honest, I may have been editing and hitting save late on a Tuesday night for it to go live on Wednesday, but I have continued to show up and I'm super proud of that. Even when I may have not felt inspired, I would meditate, I would connect, and an idea, a concept would always come in for me to talk about. And so every episode, I honestly can say, has come from a really beautiful, connected space. And I'm proud of each and every episode. There's some episodes that are better than others, I'm not going to lie. But the concept, the content, I've been extremely proud of the creation of each one, every 54 episodes. I have recorded 1,997 minutes of content. That's almost 2,000 minutes of content that I have recorded over the year. That feels really cool for me. I was like, oh, I'm only 3 minutes away from 2,000. So if we count this episode as part of season one, then we've hit it. We hit 2,000 minutes. I thought it would be fun to also kind of reflect back on what were your top 5 favorite episodes of the years? Which ones got the most listens? So, no surprise, Medical Astrology with Julie Larson was my number one episode of last year. Her and I talking about astrology. If you listen to that episode, we had a great time and it showed in that episode. And she's such a great friend of mine. The chemistry was there. If you know Julie, you love her. So her people are really loyal to her and they showed up by listening to her episode. And I absolutely love that episode. I learned a lot listening to her during that episode. So if you listen to the medical astrology episode with Julie Larson, it's my number one episode from past year. So that's a really fun one. I love that 23 years of marriage with Kel was number two. I love recording with my husband and we have so much fun together. He truly is my best friend and really the unsung hero behind the scenes of this podcast. He is always supportive. He's always there for me. He listens to every single episode. Sometimes he's like, that was a little over my head, or I didn't really love that, but he listens to every single one. And I love that the episode I recorded with him, and it was the 23 things that we've learned in 23 years episode that we recorded together for our anniversary. And I love that that is number two. And of course, so he's so fun. Everyone loves listening to Cal. I always like to tease that like people put up with me and they love Cal because he is literally the most amazing human. I always like to tease that he is a mixture of Ted Lasso from Ted Lasso and Derek from Shrinking. And that is the human that I am married to. And I'm extremely lucky that I get to call him mine. When you're looking at my man and you have any thoughts, like I want you to hear the seagulls from Finding Nemo. Mine, mine, mine. Who's mine? I love that guy. Okay, the third episode was the eclipse season episode I recorded for the 2025 eclipse season, diving into the themes of the new axis flipping to Pisces and Virgo and what that would mean for that upcoming eclipse season. So that was more of an informative one that I had recorded. That was fun that like one of my astrological insight episodes had done so well. Number 4 was Finding Freedom in Authenticity with Melissa Watts. And that was a really beautiful episode. She is this awesome, amazing, multifaceted Manjan with a thriving business. And it was really fun to hear her story, her life, her twists, her pivots, and how human design has helped her in her life. That was a really great episode. A typical Manjan conversational format we talked about a lot of things, and it was really a beautiful episode, and I really enjoyed that conversation, and she's just an amazing, fun human. Really great episode. And so that was number 4. Number 5 was my episode about GLP-1s with Kristen Salvia, who is a dear friend of mine, and no wonder that's number 5. We talked about the elephant in the room of how my complete body and health has changed so dramatically because of GLP-1s. And I know it's a controversial topic. It's a very polarizing concept as well. But for me and for Kristen, we're going to destigmatize this because microdosing has been an absolute game changer in my overall health, in my overall appearance. I have been microdosing almost 2 years now on a GLP-1 semaglutide, and it has been everything. It's an interesting thing for me because I was like, well, maybe I'll stop taking it and just to see. Because sometimes I think the biggest test of how something does for you is how do you act when you're now off of it? And how has that changed when you're not on it? So I went probably 2 weeks without a dose, just seeing how that would affect me, and it was almost immediate. My joint pain was back, inflammation started to increase, and my brain fog was bad, and it was instantaneous that as soon as it was almost out of my system, everything started coming back online. So for me, this is a lifer thing because it really has made such a difference in my life and my overall health. So if you haven't listened to that episode and you're curious about GLP-1s, that's a great episode to listen to. Kristen is the peptide expert. She is got a line one and she goes into the trenches and learns all the things about GLP-1s, and she is so good about sharing what she has learned. And she's a great teacher. She teaches it in a really great way that makes it understandable and not this like high level, too much information where it's overwhelming. So those are the top 5 episodes and some fun stats. Let's talk about mishaps. Let's talk about epic fails the past year. So I remember I was recording one episode and I was so pumped. Like I did my whole little pre-recording ritual and I had some really cool things that came up was I was getting ready to record and I recorded the whole thing. It was probably a 30-minute episode, and I was so pumped. And so when I uploaded it to the editing software, it was 30 minutes of no sound whatsoever. I had forgotten to turn my mic on. I recorded that absolute amazing episode, and I had turned my mic off for the whole thing. So that was fun. So I had to go back in and try to recreate magic because my mic had been turned off. So that was a super fun epic fail. Good times, good times. There have been times where I have done all the back end stuff. And then when I uploaded it and I thought that I had saved it and scheduled it, it did not schedule and save it. And so I woke up the next morning and I like would get on my phone and I would go to share it on my stories on social media and it wouldn't be there. So I would go back to the back office of my podcast distributing software, and it was just sitting there as a draft, never been published. So that's always fun. And I'm in a bit of a mini crisis. So I'd have to go in there and make sure that I for sure hit publish so that it was distributed. So that's been fun. But podcasting is a trip. If you're thinking about podcasting or you're kind of like, I wonder how much actual work goes into it, it's a lot easier than you think. So for me, like just give you guys a background idea of what goes into a podcast episode. You just need a really good mic. You need a good camera if you're going to put it on social media with clips and things like that. My camera's even not that great. My mic is, I think, $40. So it's not like I'm making big investments. Is there a time when this podcast grows and I am one of the top podcasters? Absolutely. I will invest in higher end software. I will invest in those things. But for right now, starting messy is better than not starting at all. And I'm living proof. I did not invest a whole lot of money to get started in podcasting, and it has continued to grow. Month after month, my numbers get better. I have more listeners. I really want you to know that you don't have to be perfect. My first episodes, probably not my best. They were a little bit on the messier side, or actually, I over edited them. So they were too perfect and they didn't even sound like me because I was trying to be so professional. And if you've been listening here for a while, you know I like to have fun. I like to play. I like to not take this podcast so seriously because I want this to feel like I'm listening to my girlfriend, Andy, talk about some really cool shit. That's what I want my podcast to sound like. I want to listen to her coffee conversations with a good friend. That is the vibe that I'm trying to incorporate. I do not want to come off as super polished. I do not want to come off as this expert. I mean, am I an expert? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to deny that of myself. I'm going to tell you I know some things and I'm really good at what I do, but I don't want to have that aboveness because I want you to see that you can do this too. You can for start a podcast. You can start it messy. You can start any project and start it messy. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. I'm a living, breathing embodiment of that is I started messy. I started not really knowing what I was doing. And I have learned and grown a lot over this year. And I've learned some tips and tricks on how to do this. There's really great software that makes it super easy. I am not a tech savvy person. Functional, but not great. So there's, software. There's Riverside that makes it really easy where I literally can just highlight sentences and delete it and it edits for me. That makes my job a lot easier because, hey, I'm the producer of my podcast as well, where I am going in and editing each podcast episode for you. And then I use Buzzsprout, which holds and hosts my podcast. And as long as I upload it there, it's automatically sent out to all the podcast platforms. So truly all you need are those two softwares if you're wanting to create a podcast. I'll put those links in the show notes because I want you to see how easy this can be. You don't have to overcomplicate it. If I can start a podcast, so can you. And the interesting thing about podcasting that is really exciting is that it's not oversaturated. You may think that it is, or it may feel that way, but when you compare it to YouTube and blogs and, social media accounts, it is very, very unsaturated. So I heard that there are probably about 500,000 active podcasts. That sounds like a lot, but when you think about how many active YouTube accounts there are, how many active blogs there are in the world, how many active social media accounts and TikTok and Instagram accounts that you're competing against, it is very unsaturated. And it doesn't take a whole lot of momentum to raise in the ranks and start to rank for your podcast. So those are some really cool logistical things to think about when you're thinking about starting a podcast. I'm a girl's girl. If you want support starting your podcast, I would love to help you. I'd love to answer any questions that you have because I want you to see that your voice matters, that what you put out there matters. There's so many other ways to do this, but I want you to understand that you're not late. Most people would look at me, 46 years old, and you're starting a podcast? Really? Really? But hey, I'm right on time. I'm doing things in my own way. I'm having the time of my life. I've connected with really cool people, made some lifelong friendships via podcasting. And now I have this whole group of friends that are my podcast friends. And it has been so fun to watch them grow, to watch me grow, for us to do podcast swaps. And I have had the time of my life. And I'm so grateful for this past year and for what I've learned about myself in the process, the connections I've made. One of my favorite things is when I get DMs from you, when I get reviews from you, when I see that my content has landed. I Seriously, my favorite thing in the world is when I wake up or when I look at my phone and someone has shared an episode or they've DM me and said, "Hey, I love this episode. It meant so much to me." That is so, so amazing and makes my complete day. So thank you so much for those who have shared their love, shared their gratitude because I send it right back to you. I am so grateful. Even if you've never left a review, if you've never sent me a text or, a DM, I see you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Season 2 is going to be so amazing. I'm so excited. If it has grown this much in a year, and my first year to be exact, because I know the podcast platforms are not very friendly to first year podcasters because they want to make sure you're going to stick. And so now things are going to start to take up traction. Things are going to start to grow, and I am here for it. I'm so excited to continue to open my heart, open up my perspective, the way that I see the world, because, at the end of the day, this is my piece of the puzzle. My piece of the puzzle is to help you see yourself, help you see your potential. And that is by me showing up each week, embodying those principles that I teach, showing you that it's what you want is totally doable. And that is my passion and my purpose. And I'm so grateful, so full of love for this amazing opportunity. I'm like the luckiest gal in the world that I get to do this for a living. Are you kidding me? I'm so excited, and I'm only getting started, friends. It's going to be an amazing next year. If you know someone who I need to have on the podcast, reach out. I'd love to have more guests on the show as we continue to grow the things together. And if this podcast has made a difference in your life, if you've enjoyed growing with me for the past year to celebrate our 1 year anniversary of being podcast besties, I would love for you to share what episode really resonated with you and what your favorite episode was over the past year. Much love, and I'll see you next week for the launch of season 2.